You got it. All
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the next episode of Skull Experience. Now, we do have some breaking news to get into and talk about, but first off, as you can tell, I got another guest this week. Today we're joined by Jack of 10,000 Takes Podcast. So we're going to give you a little bit of time, Jack. Tell us a bit about yourself and how you came to be a Vikings fan and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so my name is Jack Leverance, CEO, founder of 10,000 Takes. We have a number of different podcasts, like 6 or 7 of them. Blog, we sell merch, we have events, kind of do the whole 9 yards. But been a lifelong Minnesota sports fan. Actually, Indianapolis Colts fan first, Vikings fan second, but obviously big fan of the Wild. I'm actually watching that game right now. But yeah, it was pretty special Vikings year. I mean, I was in Buffalo, probably sitting, I'd say 30 feet away from Patrick Peterson, heard the pick, hit his shoulder pads. So, pretty magical season. I was at the Colts Vikings game, which was a little weird one for me, but that was obviously kind of another record breaking week. And otherwise, just yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, for sure. So, as we mentioned, a little bit of breaking news. Let's just start off with it right away. Statement from head coach Kevin O'Connell a few minutes ago here today. I informed Ed Donatello we'll be going in a different direction at defensive coordinator in 2023. While this was a difficult decision because of the tremendous respect I have for Ed as a person and a coach, I believe it's the right move for the future of our football team. I want to thank Ed for his commitment to the Vikings this past season, for the positive impact he had with our players and coaches, and for his role in helping me as a first-year head coach lay this foundation. We all wish Ed and his wife Sherry only the best in the future. We will immediately begin our search to fill this critical role. So obviously, feels a little mean. What's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't necessarily feel right to be celebrating and talking about a guy that just lost his job, but obviously we all know what the NFL is. It's a what have you done for me lately type of league, and yes, exactly, not for long. And with a defense like we had this year, which was the main reason that we didn't win, that we didn't move on in the playoffs, it was a move we all saw coming. Wondering if Kevin O'Connell had the guts to do it, and he showed he does. So it's a good sign for a first-year head coach to make a move like this. It's tough after a 13-4 season, but it's the right move. So yeah, breaking news. It's good to see, and now we can just move on from it and start that look for the next defensive coordinator of the Minnesota Vikings.
What do you think, Jack?
I think it was honestly a little late. I think it could have happened even earlier, prior to the playoffs, just based on, everyone kind of saw that coming, right? Like the Vikings have to win in a shootout, and that doesn't always last in the playoffs unless you have Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs offense. But yeah, you never want to celebrate someone getting fired, but also time to move on, man. After seeing how well that offense performed and seeing the disaster that the defense was, everyone knew it was coming. Just kind of glad it happened eventually.
Right. Yeah, I know it is tough. Like, Kevin O'Connell's first year, everybody was calling for Ed Donatello to get fired. Even me. It was hard to believe someone that would take some balls, first year head coach, to come in and just be like, we're 10 and whatever at the time, 10-2, I think. We're just going to fire our defensive coordinator midseason. Obviously, it would have been the right move. We all sat here like, the defense is the problem. We still had all this hope going through and just hoping that I was hoping that going into playoffs, like our defense, that playoff atmosphere would change, especially in the vets, would kind of light a fire on their ass, and hopefully they stepped up. There was never a game this entire year that made it more obvious than that one, that our defense was by far our Achilles heel.
Yeah, especially when you make Danny Dimes look like Tom Brady.
Right.
Daniel Jones just got a massive contract extension thanks to Ed Donatello.
And I think you did that on your show when you had Darren Wolfson on, and he was like, he was saying that, hey, I think he needs to send a big thank you card, to the Minnesota Vikings for getting him such a big contract coming up here. So yeah, I was agreeing with everything Darren Wolfson and you guys were saying, man.
Yeah.
I
just saw this,
admittedly took a prop on Daniel Jones passing yards. I knew it was going to happen, so I'm like, I might as well get something from it.
Took
Of
a prop
course,
bet on it. What was
Yeah.
it? Tell us.
It was the line was like 250. I think. What did he have? Like
Oh, yeah.
330.
Yeah,
It hit the third quarter. I didn't feel great about it, but I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, at least there was a little positive.
I would have took
All
that,
right,
man.
At least I got that. No, I couldn't. Hodges, you should have. I wonder if Hodges even had a prop out there. That's his name, Hodges, the wide receiver, right?
Hodgins.
No,
Isaiah
yeah, I don't know.
Hodgkinson, I think it is.
Whatever.
Hodgins.
Either way, he destroyed us, and he was probably on the practice squad at some point in the season.
But I did want to talk about this comment here by I Am the Life. The players need to be sometimes held accountable for not winning. I definitely agree, and I think a lot of Vikings fans feel the same way, where it was both scheme and players. I mean, obviously, as we have a lot of aging vets, and I know me and Jamie kind of talked about it after the game was on the Monday following the game, that I think we're going to see some faces we've all come to know and love for the last 10 years not be on this team anymore going into next year. So I definitely do agree. It is a little bit, the players definitely need to be held accountable as well. So and that's the hard part. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's like there's got to be a scapegoat somewhere, and it usually does come down to the coordinator. Also, not just that, but I mean, Ed Donatel showed he was never able to make adjustments. I mean, the middle of the field was wide open all the time, especially this last game, and there was never one adjustment to be made to that. So it's kind of frustrating.
And after
Which
that,
brings me, but talking about the players brings me to another little point that I thought was kind of funny. If we're talking about players and not being up to their full potential, Patrick Peterson today on his podcast came out and said like he was in shock when Kirk Cousins threw the 3-yard pass on 8 yards. Like he said he was pretty sure that Kirk
back, and then he thought maybe that he forgot what down it was. Well, I was taken back about how bad the defense was playing.
Well, especially Patrick Peterson. I mean, Isaiah Hodgins lit him up twice this year.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, I bet Kirk was taken back by Daniel Jones's performance and all the passes over the middle. I think everyone was taken back by that.
Patrick Peterson, I think he ended up with a 40 PFF grade, which was the lowest on our team. So he had probably his worst game of the season against a guy that shouldn't really be doing anything like that, I think, in Hodgins or whatever we decided.
He had a decent game against him last time too.
Yeah. Before we move on, though, I want to shout everybody out. Thanks everybody for watching. Right away, you should go subscribe to 10,000 Takes through YouTube and your where do you guys stream your podcast mostly? Would you say?
We're on Twitter, Instagram, but all of our podcasts are on Spotify. There's a link in our Twitter bio that has it all the links to stuff.
And if you're watching on Minnesota Sports Talk, I got the Twitter and the YouTube channel in the description, so you guys can go quick subscribe there, open up another tab, and go give them a subscribe.
Yes, and then also don't forget to subscribe to us, GG Sports Podcast, and Dave, Minnesota Sports Talk. Carlos, Ed Donatel is gone. Let's fucking go. There's definitely some excitement here. The Music Misery. Yup, it's official. Great guy, great coach, but not right for us. Definitely. That's a good way to approach it. You already mentioned I Am the Life. It's more of the players that didn't want to win. Bandito. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord spit you. Donatel fired. Skull Mafia, Skull, David. I think that is Donatel. All that good stuff. Yeah. Anyways,
hey, Jackie, where one of the listeners said that the players need some responsibility. Well, this is the first move.
Right.
There's lots of moves coming. You think? What's your take on that?
Exactly.
Yeah, dude. I don't know. Like Kwesi has a lot on the table for the offseason. I mean, there's a lot of people up for contract. I think on top of the coaching, you also got to switch up some of the players. I mean, I don't know if they're going to be able to afford someone like Harrison Smith. There's so many different players that you could swap out. I think Za'Darius has a pretty high cap hit. He didn't have the best second half of the season, even though he was a little banged up. But I don't know. There's definitely some work, I think, all over the place on the defense.
Yeah, and I know I kind of mentioned it. I know me and Jamie were talking about it on Monday on our post-game stream, but like the one play that really just kind of showed where we're at and was really like, I don't know, kind of hit you in the feels was when Eric Kendricks, Daniil Hunter, and Harrison Smith all missed a tackle on Matt Breida on like 3rd and 5, and we'd have got the ball back.
Like he's Mike Allstott.
And
right,
after all three of those guys, after all three of those guys missed the tackle, I'm just like, you just kind of.
Yeah, I think Dable doused that receiver in butter. and then just slid the guy all over the place. It's the only explanation.
Yeah, it was pretty rough. But I mean, yeah, but I definitely think that, in the coming, especially like when we get into March, free agency type stuff, I think we're definitely going to see a lot of those names either get traded or just straight up cut. I mean, obviously, we already see that Adam Thielen's camp is laying the foundation for him not to be here next season. And then, I don't know. There's a lot of tough decisions that Kwesi needs to make. I think there's going to be a lot of fans that aren't happy with some of the decisions, but at the same time, as I Am the Life said, the players just, it was on them as well. And there was a lot of times where they just didn't, I don't know. You can tell they're getting slow. That's kind of the moral of the story. It's like, they're not the guys they were 3-4 years ago. I mean, obviously when they were at the peak of their game back in that 2017 season, when our defense was tops in the league, but at this point, they're not the same players anymore with the money you're paying them, especially when you're uptight against the cap, like the Vikings are. It's a tough
Jack,
time.
what do you think about that? I mean, Harrison Smith was a Pro Bowler last year, right? And a lot of these guys, how much do you think it's the age? Some of the guys are like 30 and we're thinking we should put them out they should be out of the league already because they're 30 years old. They're not 35, they're 30. How much do you think it is the scheme just being like the teaching of it was just so confusing, and you cannot play fast when you're confused, thus making you look old? I mean, I'm not saying either way. I'm just thinking, what would you put? How much would you put on the defensive scheme, and how much would you put on ex-Pro Bowlers?
I think maybe 70-30. It's a fair percentage. That's just a guess.
The players 70 or the
scheme.
Yeah. I'm kind of I lean that way, man. Yeah, I agree.
There's enough good guys on that defense still. I know that age is a thing and shit changes fast in sports. Someone who's a Pro Bowler one year can be complete dog the next year. So I think it's way more easy to blame Donatel. I'm gonna say 70-30.
And you had guys like Patrick Peterson that had one of his better years in a while. Right? It's definitely better than last year.
When he wasn't getting toasted by Isaiah Hodgins.
Yeah.
It even felt like the defense was better in the first half of the season. I don't know what happened like halfway through the season, because if you guys remember, they gave up like a lot of points, but they would always make some clutch play at the end.
Right. And that's kind of what
that magic kind of ran out.
Right. And that's kind of what it was. Like a lot of times it was a prime player, like a big time player forcing like jumping around or forcing some sort of a turnover.
An individual effort.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
That strip against the Bears was electric. I'm thinking back to plays like that.
Yeah. Exactly. And then I was at the Jets game when Cam Dantzler jumped the route in the end zone. Obviously, Jack, you said you were at the Bills game when Patrick Peterson jumped the route in the end zone. Right. So it's a lot of like those type of plays where these guys, but when they were forced just to play actual defense and they couldn't get those turnovers, you really started to see the cracks in the armor, I guess. And I think the issue was too, it's like you were transitioning 4-3 players into a 3-4 scheme in one off season. And it's just like the players don't fit the personnel, but the personnel doesn't fit the scheme, but the scheme just didn't seem to work with the coordinator. And it was just kind of a big mess of just nothing seeming to work right at the same time, unfortunately.
Yeah, and this is a really good point. Zadarius Smith was night and day early in the season to the end. That was a good point. Like he was like having an all-pro start first half of the year. I know he had that. What was it? Was it a knee injury that he was dealing with? I forgot what it was. Obviously we knew he was dealing with an injury, but there was definitely our defense was hurting bad once he was dealing with that.
He wanted to put his entire season's effort into getting back at Green Bay in week one, which he did.
Yeah, he did.
I remember he did that like army crawl celebration. I mean, that was his Super Bowl, was getting to just fuck up Aaron Rodgers.
Right. So. He even did the Jared Allen celly one of his sacks, man. It was different. There was kind of more fire on that.
Well, I think that wasn't that the game that we put him in the Ring of Honor or something like that? Or
when he rode out on a horse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was at that game.
Top 5 moment, I think, in sports that week was just Jared Allen rode out on a horse, which is the most fitting.
Oh yeah,
thing
dude. Dude, I put that as my thumbnail.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's a good one.
I was at that game and got the Jared Allen mullet wig and everything. That was pretty cool.
I had people that didn't really know football and knew me and said, who is this? Or did you see this? I'm like, yeah, I saw that.
So wait, awesome. my I can't remember if you're in the top left. Is it Casey?
Yeah.
I think your name disappeared. So you were at the game. Did you know he was going to ride out on a horse? That's
I
my
had no
question for
clue.
you.
I had no
That's the
clue.
best thing ever that no one saw that coming. And it's just
Yeah,
awesome.
that's
But what
great.
it
It doesn't surprise me.
exactly.
But
Nobody saw
Well,
it coming.
do you
but, like,
remember
you're like,
how he
wow, it's just laid out.
retired? Do you remember how he retired?
no.
Rode off into the sunset on the horse.
But it was so cloudy that he's like, well, it's cloudy, but I'm gonna ride on.
You get
it's
it.
like
Yeah, I mean, you can
He
fix
was-
it. You guys.
he couldn't ride in this. He wanted to ride in the sunset, but it was complete overcast, so he couldn't.
Yeah.
But he mentions
Darren
that,
Allen's
and
the
then
best.
goes riding off into the clouds.
That's typical Minnesota in January.
Right.
The sun is out like once a year, like once a month.
I just heard Mike. I can never say his name. Patton.
Michaels.
Yeah. Is a Mike. All right. Anyways, is a front runner for DC. I disagree. I think they should look elsewhere. What are your guys' thoughts on that? I wouldn't really want to go in house after.
A
Giants
but like Mike Pettin, he knows defense. Obviously, he was a head coach before, and he's coached decent defenses. But I mean, I think didn't Green Bay fans want him out like yesterday when he was their defensive coordinator? I thought I heard from a lot of Green Bay fans that he just wasn't any good over there.
I mean, we do pretty good with washed up Green Bay players, but
there was like a specific game. I think it was a playoff game this last year there where there was some play that I don't know. He was playing prevent defense or something like that, and they got after him. I don't know. But when I went back and looked at the stats, his defense were highly ranked, like top 10.
That's the move. That's the mid-season move I wish we would have taken. Is just
that's why I thought we could have did it mid-season, like you said, Jack.
But now we didn't do that. I don't know. I have a hard time thinking that would be our best case. Especially, I haven't looked to see who's available potentially for us for defensive coordinator. I know a lot of people are talking about floors, which I would definitely be cool with that right now. Anyways, obviously we'll probably have to come up with more content. Everyone's going to be talking about who are we going to get next, but
for sure. Drop shot, Jake. The biggest issue was actually linebacker position, unable to play. I agree with that as well. I mean, Kendricks obviously was slowed a little bit this year. Hicks was okay, but he's not, a top tier starting caliber linebacker, and especially in that scheme as well. And coverage, obviously, you got to be a little bit quicker. Like Brian Osimo would have been a good coverage linebacker because of his speed. So that'd have been nice. Music in the Misery, another comment. Odds of bringing Frazier back as our DC, stealing from Buffalo. I'm fine if he just stays.
Dude, people are talking about him potentially get another shot at head coach.
Yeah,
even though
I don't know.
I don't know about it, but
I don't know. I don't think so.
I thought that was the move that we should have made. Probably Dallas game. I don't know. Is like is bring in Mike Pettin, because I mean he's got experience with his defense, and I think he'd probably be definitely more aggressive than Donatil. And Jack, if he looking at this last game, he said we were going to like what we saw, and I thought it was probably his worst. One of the top worst games he schemed the entire year, because we weren't blitzing at all, right? And he wasn't disguising blitzing. He wasn't faking blitzing. He wasn't coming up to the line and backing off and disguising it. And then when he went to blitz, I mean, it looked like we had a guy in a sprinter stance ready to blitz, and he knew, and their quarterback could easily see who was coming, like our nickel off the edge. And then he literally didn't hand the ball off and threw it to his receiver instead of handing the ball off because that guy was wide ass open, and he knew it was going to be. That's how crazy. That's how predictable we were. And I think Mike Pettin would have came in and would have been completely different, and we could have been serviceable defense. Do you think we're going to give Mike Pettin a legitimate shot, or do you think we're going to shop around, take some time, and get the right guy?
I think you got to shop around. I think you got to consider the options. I mean, there's no rush, right? No. You have an entire offseason. Get it right, especially because you have so many other good coaches and people on the staff. Right. This is a pretty critical role, and you can see how, one guy can turn it upside down. And going back to when he said before the game, like, you're going to like what you see. I've been watching mediocre sports teams enough to know that when a coach has been doing a shitty job and they come out and say that, it's like, he has no answers. Like all he can do is just try to lie to people, which is kind of what it felt like it was. It was like, all right, like, I've tried everything. We're still one of the worst defenses in the league. Like, I'm just going to tell them what they want to hear, and hopefully we get lucky. So I knew that was shit the minute he said it. Right, I knew that was it. So unfortunate, but
that discouraged me more than anything.
Yeah. But here's an interesting point. This guy brings up, what do you think of Vic Fangio? Like, Vic Fangio is obviously has a proven track record as a defensive coordinator,
Mm-hmm.
but also Ed Donatel is kind of a, Vic
He's
Fangio
his
underling,
protege,
exactly. So it's like, and I don't know. I mean, obviously, like I said, Ed Donatel and his stops as D coordinator hasn't been very good. Vic Fangio, obviously, as one of the top defensive coordinators that's coached the position. It's an option, I guess, but also I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. I wonder if you guys think we should go with the younger thing like we've done with our head coach and our GM and pretty much everywhere else? Because it was kind of, and almost that's what the Donatel hire did kind of feel a little bit forced to me. Just almost like wanted to just have like an older guy in that position, someone who's has been around longer. Instead of getting another guy in the whole coaching staff be these guys under 40. Do you guys think we should find a guy more like that especially for a guy like Kevin O'Connell as a head coach? It might be easier for him to have someone like that. I don't know. What's your guys' thoughts on that?
It's the older guys that always scare me for whatever reason. It seems like that's been the trend lately with coaches, is like the young ones are the ones who not only you can have for a while, but are more up to date with the game. So when you bring in some of these older guys, it scares me. Like they think they're playing like an older style of football and
Right.
with stuff, and I don't know. Like I think going with a young person has just been what's been working in the game.
Yeah.
And especially since a lot of,
agree.
like, obviously the older generation of players getting kind of weeded out and the younger guys are coming in, and those younger coaches might know how to, especially like we saw with Kevin O'Connell and Justin Jefferson this year. It feels like that connection just works out pretty well.
Yeah, they can relate more,
especially when we're going young, when we're probably going younger on defense after this offseason.
For sure. Yeah, but Belichick's protege hasn't always worked out, and you'd still want Belichick. That's also very true. It's also very true. Belichick is, kind of the same thing. Belichick's a proven coach, and I guess his guys haven't always succeeded at their next stops when they take over as head coaches in places. So that's definitely a fair point. And Ed was there to help Kevin transition, which could also be true. Kind of get that veteran presence as one of your coordinators. So speaking of coordinators, we'll kind of get off the defense thing for a while here because that's been kind of talked about ad nauseum. It was announced earlier that Wes Phillips was also Chargers reached out to interview him, and he turned him down because he wants to stay here and thinks we're building something special. So when a guy turns down a chance to be a play calling offensive coordinator, to stay with Kevin O'Connell, obviously a guy he knows and respects, and thinks that something could be good here, it's like that's a good thing to hear, and that's makes you happy that Kevin O'Connell is here. I definitely don't. I mean, I think he has some room to grow, but I definitely feel like, obviously, as we all know, I think a lot of people feel like he was the right choice and is proving to be exactly what we thought he would be coming into this team, bringing in that new attitude and stuff. So it'll be interesting, though. I wonder if he'll put more on Wes Phillips' plate or what he's going to do, because I honestly was in the camp that kind of wishes he would have maybe stepped back from play calling duties a little bit and handed off to somebody else to become a complete head coach. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's got too much of that McVay fire in him where he wants to, control that offense. But no, interesting. But it's still nice to have like a good right-hand man, even if he's not going to be calling plays, just to help you with game planning and putting everything together week by week. So good to see Wes Phillips sticking around.
Yeah, I think the Chargers are more cursed than the Vikings, so it's probably for the best that he stuck around here.
I was going to say, because didn't he fire like 2 coordinators back to back now? I don't know if he's. I heard today sometime that the Chargers had fired a guy, right? And they fired someone last year too after 1 year. Like, do I go there and get fired right away? What are the expectations? I'm going to be behind a defensive head coach rather than an offensive head coach. I mean, and I think you probably want your next job to be a head coach, not switching to. And I guess that is if you're going to be the play caller, that is a way to prove yourself. But I would think,
especially on that team with Herbert and the talent they have offensive weaponry wise. So that'd be, it's going to be a hot commodity. Someone's going to go there, and it's going to be a good fit for them, especially with what they got over there.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, they could. It's going to be a good spot for someone to go to, who has weapons already. So yeah,
for sure.
So I know we want to move on, Casey, from the defense, but I got one more thing, right? Jack, what do you think about? Well, here's my thought process. If we're staying with the 3-4, we might as well trade Daniil Hunter. He's on an outside linebacker. We might as well get a lot of value for him and him to go to a 4-3 defense. And we go spend our money on a guy that can do both pass rush and cover. And if we go back to a 4-3, keep Daniil Hunter because that's his bread and butter. And then we get rid of Darius Smith. Do you think that is a possibility that we revert back to a 4-3?
It's possible. I guess it just depends on who's running it, how they assess the players. And I know there's a lot of factors there, but I'm just in the camp of whatever works, honestly.
Well, here's one added feature to that. Our defensive line is we got 4-3 defensive tackles playing defensive end. And then we don't have a true nose tackle for a 3-4 that could really is known to get pressure up the middle. We're not getting to the quarterback with those three guys. And I just thought, well, we I think instantly fixed our defense with a 4-3. We got traditional defensive tackles, we got a defensive end, and then we got a combo between Jones and Wanham. And that was my thought process of, hey, we instantly fixed our defense, or defensive line anyways. That was my thought. What do you think of that? Do you think that's a reason to go back to the 4-3?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, you mentioned Hunter. Like, Hunter would be a great guy to keep around if possible. Yeah. Right. Same with Smith. I think, like I said, I think this offseason you just got to start from square one and, figure out whatever's going to work based on the players you have, based on whatever the coach wants to run, and you just go for it. So, I think they just got to be open to anything at this point. Anything would be better.
Now, you've probably seen, and I think you guys discussed about it, about how players, like people on Twitter and different venues, let's call them, were like, burn it down, get rid of trade off Cutter, get whatever with Cousins, and then start over right now. The whole idea is that draft a quarterback and try to win a Super Bowl in his rookie contract. What do you think is more possible? And I did a poll on this. What do you think what is more likely to happen for a team? Go get that rookie quarterback, go get that quarterback that wins the Super Bowl in his rookie contract, or turn around a defense in 1 year. What do you think is more possible?
To me, it's more obvious that you have to keep Kirk. I don't think you can get rid of I don't think that makes sense. I mean, you said it yourself, like, the defense is the problem. Invest all resources in the defense right now. Like, they're like I said, first, I'm a Colts fan, and I can't tell you how much you miss having a reliable quarterback until you don't have one for 5 years. Mm-hmm. So, like, that side of me is saying, be thankful of Kirk. That's a good, solid quarterback. Invest in the defense. And heck, if you're able to steal a quarterback somewhere, a young quarterback rookie, have him sit behind Kirk for at least a few more years, maybe extend Kirk 2-3 years and call it quits at that. Maybe, I don't know, but
after Brock Purdy, I'm drafting a quarterback in the 7th round every year.
Yeah, who cares? You don't need a first rounder anymore. You can get one in the last round. I think you got to keep him. Well, and how you guys feel about that?
Well, for sure. I agree, mainly just because I've heard people say, blow it up, start over, get a new quarterback. Well, if you want to do that, then Justin Jefferson ain't staying here because he's not going to want to sign big money to stay in a rebuild. If he's the best receiver in the league, a big upstart rookie coming in, that's fine. But at the same time, it's like, does that help me win right now? Is that going to win me a Super Bowl in the next couple of years? Because I think everything Justin Jefferson's saying about how money's not that important, I just want to win, I think that's true to an extent. But also, I just think it's, jockeying so he doesn't seem like that diva receiver, just in case he does make it to the free agent market for whatever reason. But at the end of the day, the guy wants his money, yes, but he also does want to win. I think that's a large extent of it. So you're not going to convince him to stick around for a rebuild. And how are Kwesi Adolfo and Kevin O'Connell going to be like, oh, hey, guess what? So it was our first year. We went 13-4, won our division pretty handily. We have we have a defense to fix. Yes, we know, but yeah, we're just going to, kind of take a couple years off and start rebuilding things. How do you feel about that? He's going to look at them like they're a bunch of idiots. And he's going to say, I'm going to go find a place that'll pay me and I can go win football games. So see you guys later. And if the Vikings let Justin Jefferson slip out the door, do you know how many fans are going to be calling the Vikings front office a bunch of idiots? It's just, when I hear people say blow it all up, it just doesn't make sense to me because then you're going to have to sacrifice the best wide receiver in football now, and who knows where he'll end up by the time his career is over. So
Yeah.
I personally think that Kirk is the direction to go, just if only for that reason. He's a steady hand, he's a steady force, and Justin Jefferson knows it. I mean, Justin Jefferson knows he has his limitations, but who doesn't, you know?
So I'm gonna go with, I think, extend Kirk for, I'd give him another year. I don't think Kirk's an elite quarterback by any means. And I understand like the Justin Jefferson thing, which that's why I say keep Kirk. Obviously, Kirk will be around next year. Keep him for another year. I definitely want us to go for some sort of younger quarterback that can take over for Kirk eventually. I don't care how we do it. I just think I think it's hard to win a Super Bowl. It's all about the Super Bowl. I think it's hard to win a Super Bowl without an elite quarterback. And throughout Vikings history, we've only had one elite quarterback, in my opinion, and that was Fran Tarkenton. And those are the only Super Bowls we've ever been to. So I think even if we can change our defense in 1 year, which we did actually do when we hired Zimmer the first time, do I think Kirk is still that guy that for sure can bring us to that chance to win the Super Bowl? I was hoping so this playoffs. He played a fantastic game, one of his best, definitely his best playoff game. I don't know, that Saints one was pretty good too. But he hasn't even had a lot of shots in the playoffs. But obviously coming down to that last play, 4th and 8, throws it under, end of the season. It didn't give me what I was hoping for going into the playoffs, because I wasn't coming into the season super confident with Kirk. I thought he played fantastic the entire season. All the comeback victories was amazing. But man, when it really mattered, you made that decision, which scares me for playoffs in the future, even if we have a good defense. So I do think it's a league that it's hard to win Super Bowls unless you have an elite quarterback. And, we can teeter-totter with a guy like Kirk for the next few years, but I have a hard time believing this is when we're going to win a Super Bowl, is with Kirk under center. So that's where I am at with all that Kirk stuff.
I'm going to pull my age on you, Jamie. We had Warren Moon for 3 years. We had Brett Favre.
Brett Favre. I would say Brett Favre, but 40-year-old Brett Favre. I would call him as the elite quarterback.
I know, but I think what you and I all want is a guy that was our franchise quarterback for 10, 12, 15 years.
Yeah, we do, but we want like a Mahomes. Obviously, all right, we're not like, what's the chance you're going to ever get a Mahomes? But Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. I like Justin Herbert, even though he didn't show a lot. Trevor Lawrence is stepping up. There is teams getting these young people. Think like you can't get these. It's wishful thinking getting these elite young quarterbacks or whatever. But we've seen other teams that are bottom feeders like us do it. Not bottom feeders, I want to say. We're always in the middle. That's why we can never get any of those guys. But still, actually, you said Warren Moon.
Jack, being a Colts fan, you had your franchise guy, right? And then he so many injuries, he got knocked out.
Andrew Luck.
He walked away, and it's been a disaster ever since. You've had 6 QBs, I think, in the last 6 years. So
we've had 26 starting quarterbacks since Brett Favre took his first start in Green Bay. We've had 26 different starting quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Kofi, great point here. Draft a quarterback next year, let him sit behind Kirk for 2 years. You should always look for a quarterback. I definitely agree. You should always why not draft a quarterback every year just in case you end up with a Brock Purdy? But also this year might not be the year to do it unless you're going to be able to trade off Danielle Hunter for some picks or something. But because with 4 draft picks and a lot of needs on defense and probably still some needs along that offensive line as well, it's tough to justify. I mean, I don't know. It's tough to justify taking a quarterback when Kirk's coming off a season like he just came off of. But I think it's a weird spot.
I think you can get a younger quarterback. Like, I don't think you're in a weird spot. I don't think Kirk Cousins has proved enough to say like, no, they should not even think about like Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love.
I don't think what picks in 100 holes on defense to fill.
Yeah, but I don't know.
That's the question.
Pick someone. I don't think you win. I have a hard time seeing that we're going to win a Super Bowl.
Well, the reason like last year, you can. Jack, you can give me your thoughts on this one. The reason why I was like, we need to draft a quarterback last year is because we had no backup quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, that was horrible. I did
Sean Mannion.
No faith in Sean Mannion, no faith in, a little faith in Mond, very little. And I'm like, okay, we got these guys are dropping into the 3rd down, and I was high on I think Ritter, and a couple other guys, and even including a guy that I think went undrafted, and I'm like, pick him up, but we did I feel like now we fixed it. We can re-sign Nick Mullins. I don't think anybody's wanting him to be their starter. I have faith in him as a backup quarterback. So now I'm thinking, okay, we draft a quarterback and we put him on the practice squad. He gets nabbed. We just wasted a pick, and that's my worry there. So we would have to keep that quarterback. We really like him on the 53, which we kind of need, for defensive purposes or whatever. So the fact that we have a Nick Mullins right now, I don't know if this year's the right year because we only have 5 picks in the draft this year, and I don't think we have the ammunition to move up to get a guy or move around. This seems like a year where Kwesi's going to move down just like he did last year and accumulate picks to try to fill all those needs. How do you feel about what his strategy is? Quarterback kind of seems out this year to me, but hey, we might take a flyer or bring in a UFA but those picks and moving down, do you think he's going to be like that this year?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely need bodies. I can see them going after a quarterback. Yeah, maybe not this year, maybe next year, because that's definitely the move. Get a guy for maybe like next year, develop him for 2 years, maybe keep Kirk around and then do the transition. Because while I think Kirk is capable of being the guy with a way better defense, you do definitely need to start planning for the future because he's not going to be around forever. Have you guys seen the crazy theories people throwing about like trade the house for Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I wouldn't take that.
That would be the most
Wilson talking about
outrageous thing ever. But I can't believe like people were actually saying that this week. I'm like, you're talking about taking a humongous risk for a guy who's been on and off from injury, who didn't even play in the playoffs this year.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't have been surprised, but I did.
Right,
I did see people asking for that.
And once he gets one more leg injury and can't run like he used to, he's not a good pocket quarterback.
And another thing is, like you said, Brock Purdy with the 7th round pick. I do think like even if we go after a quarterback like that, even if it's late, I'd like to see, the earliest we've drafted a quarterback recently was Kellen Mond. That didn't work out, 3rd round. But Casey made a good point on one of the podcasts that we've had recently where the 49ers went in the season with Lance, knowing they're going to be their star quarterback, hopefully, and Jimmy Garoppolo still on the roster, and they still went and drafted a guy like Brock Purdy, even with all those players in front of them. And I do think that is in my opinion, I mean, I think you got to take whatever chance you can get at having that quarterback for the future potentially. Even for Rap,
one of the things with Purdy though,
Wilson.
one of the things with Purdy was anybody could have took him, right? Like anybody could have brought him, put him on the 53 all year long. They were, they're lucky other teams didn't like him. Also, we lost we lost our practice squad quarterback, right? That we liked, and then now we have what's his name that we picked up that was picked top 10 overall? Josh Rosen.
Yeah.
Look at Josh Rosen. He was, there was discussion of him going number 1 that year, and now he's our practice squad quarterback, and it's only been 4 years, maybe. So yeah, it's a big risk, but they did luck out the fact that nobody else saw what they saw probably.
Right. But they also were good to not take that off the table just because they had their future at quarterback and stuff. And that's what I'm saying. Like for us, I don't think we should look at Kirk as that quarterback where we feel like we're going to like disrespect him or something just because, especially even if we pick the quarterback early. I do believe like our defense absolutely has to change, and I want our team to be somewhat good. So this year, you're right, it's probably not the best time to pick.
Yeah, me and Casey are just talking about we got like 5 picks.
Yeah, right. Unless you really like someone, unless you really
you got to really like somebody, I think.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
But
Jack, is there a team you really like? Is there a guy you really like out there? Or Indy or the Vikings?
I like CJ Stroud a lot. That's kind of who I've been eyeing down, but I don't know, man. I'm not the biggest draft guru, so I couldn't give you the best opinion. But if the right guy's there and it's a steal, I think you can't say no. But otherwise, stack up the defensive bodies. We need them. Or like you guys mentioned, that offensive line too. I knew when O'Neal went out, I was like, that might be the kill shot, because that was kind of always the other concerning thing outside of Darrisaw and O'Neal is the offensive line. I mean, Darrisaw and O'Neal are great, but outside of that, it's tough.
Udo stepped up pretty well actually in O'Neal's placement, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which
but
was
he's
good
not.
to
But he's
see.
not. But you're not going in next year expecting him to start anywhere. So
No. But that's another question. So, we're talking about in the draft, we need bodies. I would say, do you think cornerback is still our biggest need going in there? And then also, before you answer that, what do you think about our wide receivers? Do you think we should pick a potential wide receiver 2, bona fide wide receiver 2 early in the draft? Or do you think we should just specifically go defense?
I think a wide receiver is not a bad idea, assuming that Thielen's gone, which
Right.
sounds like based on what his wife was saying, and kind of the amount of money he's going to want. I think you can safely assume he's gone. So I don't think that's a bad idea necessarily. But in terms of defense, yeah, go after corners is what I would say. Definitely try to lock down on some of those receivers because, I mean, like you guys mentioned earlier, the amount of passes out the middle,
Mhm.
up the middle of the field and the long runs, it's just not reliable.
Yeah, no. Hopefully,
I've
we
kind of
can
felt.
see an upgrade with, or hopefully we see Booth come back and
Yeah.
Evans and Seen and see
Yeah, the
them take a
injuries did
step
not help
next
at
week.
all
For sure.
either.
No,
Like I
we've been
kind of feel
unlucky
like
with our cornerbacks, our first and second round cornerbacks.
I kind of feel like a big thing this defense is missing is like an impact interior defensive lineman. Like, I mean, obviously it depends on where you're at. Like, obviously we have some edge rushers we can use depending on, I mean, I don't know. I guess it all depends on what they decide to do with either Daniil or Zadarius Smith, depending on which way they decide to go. Which, I mean, if both of them are gone, yeah, you kind of need to pick up on some edge rushers. But I just feel like we don't have that like big impact interior defensive lineman. Obviously, if we want to talk about going and find the next Patrick Mahomes, I'm going to toss out the next Aaron Donald, one of those guys that can play interior, play outside. He can play at
We
any
passed
position
up
along
to
the
take
defensive
Anthony
line.
Barr.
But obviously, like you don't just find that guy all the time, just like with those superstar quarterbacks. But I just feel like we need some sort of just impact player along that defensive line, whether it be tackle or edge rusher or something. I feel like that's partially what this team is missing. Because last week against the Giants, I think we sent out all blitzes a couple times near the end of the game, and we didn't get even close to Daniel Jones. So I mean, I feel like we're missing just some power on that defensive line, which I don't think it's a breaking news thing to say. I think a lot of people see that, but that's where I feel this team has a big need.
I mean, I said
Donald
that
or
earlier.
Bolts
Is
type,
like
exactly. Just one of those
the
guys.
defense. The defense we were playing, we needed someone on that defensive line to get to the quarterback because your corners and your safeties can't defend for 10 seconds while Daniel Jones is running around or whatever pick a quarterback, so yeah, you need to be able to get at the quarterback with the defensive line, not have to rely on blitzing all the time. There's teams that got after us with 4 guys all year long. There's plenty of teams that did that, and they had somebody on that defensive line that could say, hey, but Harrison Phillips, great. He's a run stuffer, Tomlinson, supposedly a run stuffer. He did play really well even though he's playing out of position, but we didn't have anybody, really getting after the quarterback. And the guy that in the preseason was getting after the quarterback, I can't even remember his name now, but he had like 3 sacks after
T.Y. McGill.
T.Y. McGill, man. Hey, I
Oh,
think
yeah.
we actually might
forgot
still
about
have
him.
we still might be able to have him come into the team because he was on the DL for us. But I don't know what his situation is, but I don't know. We'll find out come up. Jack, do you think that that's a priority though? Defensive line more so than maybe receiver, although I like that too. I kind of wanted to do the same thing this past year, but what do you think there?
Yeah, I agree. It is fun to have someone on the D line like a Bosa. I saw someone mention, but specifically Nick. Joey's a little crybaby who the helmet slamming thing was hilarious to
Chargers?
me
Yeah.
because he slammed the helmet and then Brandon Staley gave it back to him and he proceeded to slam it again. So but like you said, someone who's fun, who puts pressure on the quarterback that's fun, like a Bosa type or yeah, I agree.
And when he played against us, he didn't do shit against us when
Right.
we played the Chargers, which was great.
But I don't know. But that's the thing with this team. It's like it's such a weird offseason because you feel really like 13-4, new head coach. Everything feels good. The culture feels good. It feels like a lot of players want to be here, which is amazing. But at the same time, you're also just like, oh, looking at they're going to have a first place schedule next year. just looking at the teams that they're going to play is rough. I mean, just the two that stick out to me right now outside of the division, where Detroit could be dangerous, Green Bay always has a chance to be dangerous, Chicago. But either way, you got the 49ers and you got the Bengals. Those are just two games that immediately pop out to me as like, oh boy, those are going to be rough. So I don't know. It's like there's optimism, of course, but there's also a lot of pessimistic feelings like, oh God, they got a lot of things to fix on this team before going into next year. But I feel like with the leadership we have and how smart Kwesi is, and he's already kind of started building towards that with last year's draft. And he said during his presser yesterday, he's like, we kind of felt like this draft was going to cover for 2 drafts because we had more picks than most people would thought we would have had with the trading we did. He's like, so I feel like that's going to help us out in the next year, especially that these guys, yeah, sure, they're injured, but they got a good chance to sit and watch and learn from these vets that have been playing so well for their whole careers. So it'll be interesting. I think there's a lot of work to do, but as Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi both said yesterday, the foundation is there for this team. They know what they want to do. Now it's just kind of piecing together a defense, which I know isn't an easy task, but it's something that they're going to have to figure out how to do in short amount of time. And I think that all comes with who's your coordinator, what's your scheme,
right.
and you go from there. You have to just make a decision. Do you stick with the 3-4, go 4-3, whatever you decide, you just got to start putting the pieces together for it. Because your offense, I mean, the offense is solid outside of a number 2 receiver and offensive line, which again is, it's tough.
And it'll be interesting to see what happens with Delvin Cook. A lot of people are thinking that Delvin Cook's going to be gone. Just his cap hit and everything, that he might get released. I don't know his whole cap situation and how much we save or anything like that yet. But I know a lot of people are talking about that. Jack, I guess let's ask you this last question and we'll pop off here. But what do you feel about Delvin Cook? Do you think we should hold on to him, or do you think he is just too pricey for a running back?
Yeah, it's kind of weird with that because you do have a guy like Madison who's a solid backup, but I think you got to hang on to him. I just don't know how many options are going to be available this year. And Cook, people forget, he did have a lot of like monstrous plays this season. I can think of the one, speaking of Buffalo, the big, I think 70, 80-yard run he had, I think really sparked the comeback.
The Colts.
Yeah,
he won 3, and then Miami. Those are the 3 games he won for us.
He was like, not that Delvin Cook's under the radar at all, but like he was sneakily like an under the radar, like very valuable player over the course of the year because he had a lot of those long runs, light a fire under the offense's ass, and then they'd start some of the miraculous comebacks. So
right.
Plus he's solid in the red zone. He's a good tough runner, especially if you need to punch in, on the goal line. I think he's always been good at that. So I think you got to keep him around. I know it's expensive, but what good running back isn't going to be expensive?
Right. Madison can toe the line. I think Madison's contract is up this year. My guess is we don't hold on to him.
He's
like, I like Madison, but obviously you don't need to. He's going to want some sort of money. He has potential to be a feature maybe somewhere if he gets the right opportunity. Guys, one guy that no one will be paying attention to as a quarterback next year is Kedon Slovis. Dude is a hidden gem. Watch his tapes, moves well in the pocket, isn't afraid to take chances. I will go and check him out. Like we're gonna dive into a lot of the draft stuff this offseason. So any of these like hidden gems and stuff would be nice to kind of look into because I don't really get past like the first 3 rounds of talent generally.
Yeah. Jamie, the way you are with Kirk is the way I am with Delvin Cook, and I'm just like, it's fine, get rid of him. He's solid, but yeah, it's
one of the things he's talking about, talking about quarterbacks. One of the things is that we can prepare for a year from now, right? We can prepare. We can see that. That's our goal. Hey, we could go get the guy we want. Hey,
yeah,
Jack,
Kirk's going to be on this roster no matter what this year. I feel like
we're cutting it close for you. I appreciate you coming on, man. Don't be a stranger. I would love to have you back sometime this, off season or the next. Thanks for coming, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Any last words for us?
I'll let you go, Jack, and I'll finish this up.
No, thanks for talking, guys. It takes a lot of bravery to get on the mic and talk about this after the way last week ended. So
it helps. Oh, sorry. I was going to say it helps a little bit.
I was going to say you guys are troopers for already thinking of next season because for someone like me, it's really hard to do that until like basically hockey's over.
Yeah.
And Jamie, before you go, also, guys, I got Luke Braun from Locked On Vikings right after this. So just switch over to that show and you can have another hour with me. I know you love it, right? All right. Go ahead, Jamie.
I was just gonna say it definitely helps a little bit that the guy that we kind of put most of the blame on has been released right before coming onto this podcast. So it's like, all right, so that's figured out. So now we can kind of like, think of the future and can think of different defensive coordinators potentially there. But other than that, I want to thanks everybody for watching the Skull Experience. Again, come next week, we're going to be doing this throughout the entire off season. Go subscribe to 10,000 Takes
in the description below.
On the description below. It is now in the description below on mine as well. I forgot to put any of our stuff in there. Also go subscribe to Minnesota Sports Talk and us, GG Sports Podcast. Thanks for joining, guys. Skol Vikes.
See you guys.